Welcome back to No Plot Only Lore, this week brought to you by Defy the Gods. Defy the Gods is a queer sword and sorcery adventure game set in the Bronze Age. Inspired by Clash of the Titans and Princess Mononoke, it's a game of messy romance and cursed power. Build your own city-state and pantheon of gods who then set out to destroy you. The book is over 300 pages, including a sourcebook, creatures, adventure seeds, and so much gorgeous art. Defy the Gods hits stores in early May. Also brought to you by Raccoon Sky Pirates Total Chaos Edition. Raccoon Sky Pirates Total Chaos Edition is a GM-less story game where you all play as raccoons. Build a ship out of trash in the junkyard, fly it across town to a suburban house, get in, steal everything you can before the lights come on, and try to make it home before exploding. The Total Chaos Edition is a bigger, sleeker version of the original best-selling Raccoon Sky Pirates, including components stolen from other games to bring your story to life. Raccoon Sky Pirates Total Chaos Edition comes to Kickstarter, my understanding is, tomorrow. If those sounded like actual ad reads, that's because they kinda sorta were. And I'm supposed to do YouTube things like telling you to like and comment and subscribe. So our analytics tell us that only about 0% of you are actually subscribed to our channel. So if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell, you can always unsubscribe later, I guess, or something. I didn't actually write that part down. I'm just kind of parroting stuff that I heard on my kids' YouTube. Josh isn't here today, so it's just going to be me talking for a little bit. And we actually had the creator of Raccoon Sky Pirates Total Chaos Edition and Defy the Gods come in and talk with me for a while and have a really great conversation about the differences between the old school Renaissance style games where we're trying to recapture the intrigue and the mystique of early D&D versions, and then the comparative strengths of the new school narrative games that have been coming out. And it was a fantastic conversation. Chris is lovely and intelligent and kind and witty, and you don't get to hear that conversation because immediately after having it, I closed the window and did not save. And that is entirely on me. And I hope that we can have Chris come back and talk to us about other things. Specifically, I was hoping to talk to her about stealing game mechanics, because the idea of stealing components from other board games to make your board game and then stealing rules from other games to make your game seemed kind of fun to me. So hopefully we can get Chris on for another episode at some point in the future. But that a little bit spurred me to want to talk about failure. The very first episode of No Plot Only Lore was about failure in role-playing games. It was about the idea that in a lot of ways failure is more intriguing than success. It creates more dramatic opportunities. It gives you interesting new directions to go. It better fits the standard plot diagram of like rising action, and things become more difficult as you go through the arc of the story. And it was a good episode. It was well over an hour long, and it was mostly tangents, and Josh and I didn't really have a cadence or a rhythm figured out yet, but it's the first episode for a reason, and we learned some things from it, and it was fine. It was a fine episode for the first. In real life, failure does not often lead to character development, in my experience. It often just leads to frustration and sometimes having to try a different tack on things. But the effect of failure is often much more personal in my own experience. And this one, it's embarrassing. I am honestly, like, I am coming to you a little bit with my hat in my hand and admitting the fact that I fucked up. And it's not the first time. And it sucks. And I'm kind of living with that. And if you look at the podcast as a whole, what I think is interesting is that the podcast itself, by almost any metric that you can come up with, has not been a rocketing success. Like we have some listeners, we have some regular subscribers, we hit about 3 downloads a day. We are pretty consistently showing new people are coming into the podcast, but it is a slow road. And by almost every metric that I have, this podcast has been a failure. And I've sunk a lot of money into it. And Josh and I get together every week, and I spend a couple of hours after the recording. So we record on Wednesday night. We usually spend a couple of hours chit-chatting and planning and talking about unrelated things, and then we get into the recording. And then on Thursday night, I throw down on all the editing. And the editing usually takes me about 3 or 4 hours. So that's like 4 to 5 hours of my week is spent just putting this together. That doesn't include the like uploading time or the processing time or any of the other jazz that I have to do for that. So a lot of my energy in my off time goes into this. And the return has not been what I expected, I guess. I kind of thought, and maybe this is just like some American culture stuff of just the if you build it, they will come mentality of just like, I'm going to build this thing with my friend. We're going to be 2 cis-het white dudes with a podcast, and that's going to be novel, and nobody's going to expect that, I guess. But yeah, I was kind of expecting that we would have more traction than we do. Part of that is probably a marketing fail. I'm not a great marketer. I don't really like getting up in front of people and telling people to like my thing or doing that. Oh God, just talking to all of my friends and saying, hey, can you go listen to my thing and like it and comment on it for the algorithm? It feels like soul death to me. So yeah, it's very likely a marketing fail. It might be a content fail. This format might not work. The personalities might not work. You might just find me incredibly annoying. This is going to be a terrible episode for anybody who is listening just for Josh. If you're looking for Josh Vardy, fucking sorry, bud. I got nothing for you this week. I did 30 games in 30 days as a project as well. And that's another one that I'm feeling kind of rough about right now. I finished the initial project. So the initial project was to write 30 games in 30 days. The last couple I phoned in real hard because I was done with that project after 30 days. Part of the conversation that I had with Chris was that when I was doing that project, I started very excited because I was like, yeah, I've got so many ideas for games. I can totally make so many games. It's going to be awesome. I'm finally going to have a chance to showcase all of these games ideas that I've had. And then about halfway through, I realized, oh shit, I don't actually have as many ideas for games as I thought I did. So I ran out of gas. And towards the end, it was pretty apparent where I could have written one of those games on the back of a napkin and scanned it and called it good. And then I spent a couple of weeks off, and I recalibrated and I started editing them and reposting them with like cleaner text, because of the original project I was handwriting them and hand drawing them, partially as an attempt to prove that this isn't AI, right? That I didn't just like type a prompt into Chat GPT, like, give me a game about Moses, I guess, and then it spits out a game about Moses. No, I wanted like a tactile feel for it. And so I hand wrote and hand drew all of them, and they were atrocious to read because my handwriting is pretty, but not super functional. And so I had to go back and I redid all of them. I started typing all of them out. I got about 2/3 of the way through re-editing all of those, and I just haven't. I there was I think a month between my weekly Reddit posts. I was posting up on Reddit in the One Page RPGs subreddit about this project, and after the inundation of like, here's a new game every day for a month, I slowed it down to a week. Every week I would like post an update about how many I'd edited and stuff. And yeah, it went about a month between one post and the next, and then I just haven't done one since, and I haven't updated any of the games since. They're all still sitting on my hard drive, ready to go. I just... Could be an ADHD thing, could be that the initial dopamine of just like crashing through all of those games and like getting the feedback immediately of like, yeah, I made a game, ha! Seeing like sales come in from Drive-Thru RPG, and then they just kind of petered off because that's the nature of publishing, right? Like all of those factors kind of created this inertia where getting the project done, and I had high hopes for it. I was gonna put together like a book at the end of it that included all of the games and the art, and you would have like on one page the hand-drawn version and on the other page the typed version. And I still want to do that project at some point in the future when I can force my brain to sit my ass down and actually make it happen. But yeah, like Joe Rogan, we are not, right? Like we are, I feel in some ways just kind of talking to the void, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I love and appreciate everybody who downloads this podcast and who listens to me, and listens to Josh and puts up with our ridiculous conversations about sexual assault on a gorilla or whatever the hell it is that we're talking about this week. But there was a part of me that assumed early on that this would be like a if you build it, they will come type situation, and it hasn't really materialized. And I was realizing that is also kind of true with gaming tables, because of course this is no plot, only lore. We have to make it about games somehow. But the number of games that just kind of fizzle out in the middle, right? The games that fail to take off. You do a few sessions, you are happy to get together with your friends, you bring the snacks, you roll some dice, you have a good time, and 3 or 4 sessions in, it peters out. And it happens a lot. There's actually been some research done by Sly Flourish, and I don't know what their methodology was for this. Like, I'm not a statistician, so I don't really have like a clear idea of how the survey was performed. But according to those stats, whatever those stats actually represent, only 14 to 20% of players said that they often or almost always reach a satisfying conclusion to their campaign. 20% at the outside. You spend weeks and months, sometimes years, putting these campaigns together, and only about 1 in 5 is gonna make it. And that's a weird statistic to sit with. Understanding that, especially as a DM, right? I think that coming at this as a DM, right, you have this grand story that you want to tell. You have this world that you've built that you want to share with your players. You have these characters that you've poured so much so much of your energy into, and then you get 6 or 7 sessions in and you have to call it quits. It's really disheartening when that happens. About 50% of the respondents said that the majority of their games peter out due to scheduling, burnout, and group drama. And I can't really speak to the last one. I don't have a lot of group drama that happens. I'm 45 years old. If we've got drama, we just fucking deal with it. But like, scheduling is a nightmare as an adult. I have some weird nostalgia for a very specific situation where after school, my friends and I would go to the local Smitty's. I'm from the thriving metropolis of Stettler, Alberta, so there weren't a lot of options for places to hang out as like a third space. But we would go to Smitty's, we would order coffee because it was like $1 for a bottomless cup of coffee, and we would play with creamers and make characters and sometimes do some role playing. Pouring through Palladium books and choosing character options and getting weird with it. And that is not a thing that I have done or have been able to do for many, many years. Since high school, essentially. Like there were a couple of times in my early adulthood where we kind of recaptured that magic, just everybody like piling into a friend's apartment and sitting on the floor making characters. But that modality didn't really carry over into my adult life. And I miss it. And I miss the flexibility of the scheduling of just like calling everybody up and saying, hey, we're going to game tonight, or having the everyday games. There were a few games in my late high school, early adulthood where we just gamed literally every day. We played Vampire the Masquerade every night for weeks, months. It was insane, and I was very, very tired. Which is the second one, burnout, right? Like, especially on the DM side, it is a common problem that you're doing a lot of wrangling, right? Like, role-playing games have this very strange power differential that also comes with a very strange responsibility differential, right? So we've talked about this on the pod before, of the role of the DM just essentially being a very weird one, right? You're kind of the group's dad or mom, or is there a gender neutral term for parent? I guess parent. You become the group's parent, and that can be very wearying if it's not something that you were signed up to do right away, or even just recognizing, I think, that you have more investment in this game than the other participants. And I think that's probably escalated a bit over the course of the last bunch of years with the entertainment DM becoming more and more of a feature in the world. But only about 25% of players say that they have never or almost never finished a long-term campaign. So that means that somewhere between the 20 that often or always and the 25 that has never, we have a whole lot of people who have finished a few. And I think a large part of that is going to come down to the burnout, specifically from your DMs. The reasoning behind it, scheduling and life changes were big ones. Players moving, getting new jobs, you have a kid, until your kid is old enough to play the goblins. GM burnout is at 15%. So 68% was lifestyle changes. 15% is GM burnout. 10% was narrative bloat. The story just became too big or too complex to wrap up. And that's an interesting one that I've never actually dealt with personally. Maybe I'm just too simple a storyteller. And then the 7% was the interpersonal conflict, a problem player or a group blow up. So yeah, the idea of finishing a game, like if you go into this assuming that you're going to finish your story, there are several reasons that might not be the case, right? You may never actually get to finish telling your story. It might just be that your story doesn't really have an end. Why do we keep going? Right. And for the podcast, a huge part of it for me is that the money and success and fame that everybody kind of dreams about when they start a podcast has always been very, very secondary for me. I started this because I wanted an excuse to hang out with Josh for a day every week. That's it. We had a thing, right? I don't remember which comedian it was that was talking about the third thing. Maybe it was Josh Johnson, about like guys seem to need to do a thing. They can't just like hang out at a house. They have to have like a reason to do it. The podcast is our reason. It's the thing that we do on top of just hanging out. And like a huge amount of our preamble is just us shooting the shit, right? We spend a bunch of time shooting the shit before we hit record. We record a podcast, we turn the mics off, and then we shoot the shit some more, most of the time, right? So that is the only metric that really matters to me, is that I get to spend time with my friend. If I had the opportunity to do that with more people, if I had enough time in my week that I could run several podcasts with several people that I like and appreciate, I absolutely 100% would. Like, if you've got an idea for a podcast, hit me up, shoot me an email, send me a message on Facebook or whatever. Just let me know, because if I can work it into my schedule where we can just set aside a day every week or a couple of weeks or every month or whatever schedule cadence you want, then yeah, let's do it. I like talking about nerdy shit. I like talking about nerdy shit with people that I like. And I like talking about nerdy shit specifically with Josh because he is a knowledgeable and interesting and entertaining and divergent viewpoint from mine. Right? We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. We see eye to eye about the things we like. We have very different reasons why we like them. And I think that creates a interesting place for the conversation to happen. The other thing to think about, especially when it comes to like the games that you're playing, is that I don't actually think that if you don't hit the end of the campaign, that the campaign has failed. Right? Like, I recognize that this is my framing device. I came up with this and I wrote the notes and everything. But if you have had an opportunity to get together with your friends and throw some dice and pretend to be elves or whatever it is that you're doing, there is beauty in that. There is beauty in that moment and getting to share that moment with people that you care about. There is something magical that happens when we imagine things together, right? When we have the opportunity to sit down with people that have similar life experiences to us and then imagine being people that have very different experiences than us. So if you have the opportunity to do that, if you sit down and you throw dice and you have fun, I think that's a success all on its own, right? I got to have a really great conversation with a brilliant, thoughtful, kind, intelligent, witty creator. And the fact that that conversation can't be leveraged for content because I fucked up, I don't think that detracts from the fact that that conversation was great. I really hope I get to talk to Chris again. And there will be more. There will be a future. Like, the money that I have spent on No Plot Only Lore, which to date is about $2,500. If you take the profit that I made from the 30 one-page role-playing games, we have made about $36 on this podcast. So the money that I have spent on this is hobby money. It's money that I would be spending on a different thing if I weren't doing this. Sometimes I think I get, and maybe it's not just me, I think everybody a little bit gets distracted by the monetary outcome of a thing, especially in this environment for role-playing games. We're entering into a very strange period in role-playing games right now where the possibility for monetization is there, right? We have so many avenues where you can be successful in gaming. You've got your Ginny D's, you've got your Brennan Lee Mulligans, you've got players who are hitting multiple tables from multiple companies, your Abria Iyangars, your Sam Regals, right? Like all of these different angles where you can become possibly very well off and maybe a little famous from playing games. And that is an interesting and weird and kind of frightening place to be for a hobby. And I think we get a little distracted from that. And it's better to just, I don't know, spend some time with your friend, right? Like in a very real way, I think that the real treasure of this is the friends we made along the way. And that includes, I think, you, if you're listening to this. So, as I have said in our outro so many goddamn times, thank you for making it all the way through this episode of No Plot Only Lore. If you like what we do here, please like, review, subscribe, comment, do all of the things, the YouTube-y things, the podcasty things. You can find us at all of your favorite podcast platforms or at noplotonlylore.com. And I hope that for a long time, we're going to be able to continue to do this and share our stupid, nerdy hobbies and maybe hear back from you. And if we do, then I look forward to it.